So is shade a problem in the garden? Well, yes and no. All plants in the summer are going to need a certain amount of sunlight. Usually you want to try to get about 8 hours of sunlight, but that's not always possible in your backyard. Now, in my backyard, it's kind of weird. I have this giant, I think it's a river birch, which is one of my least favorite trees ever, just because of the amount of limbs that it sheds. You can see that 12 o'clock noon, a lot of my plants right here are in the shade. Now, as this gets up past this tree, you can see it's kind of getting ready to move out there now. They're going to get a full 8 hours in the afternoon. And in fact, I even need to cover these up because shade actually can be beneficial. When you get into the heat of summer here, which really starts to fire up about June, you can start, with the apex of the sun in the sky, the combination of humidity and heat, you can really start to have plants start to stress out because of the heat. In these tomatoes right here, I'm actually going to put a 20% shade, a 60% shade cover over them because they just get blasted with the summer heat. And they're still going to get plenty of sunlight to grow and produce massive amounts of tomatoes if I fertilize and water right as well. You can see I also have a magnolia tree over here, some of these others, and then over here in the western part, the sun goes down kind of over there. I have my second least favorite tree ever, the Bradford pear, which is just another atrocious tree that's used down here in the south because it grows quick, but it's just kind of a nightmare in terms of the mess that it makes and just about everything about it. But I will actually strategically plant so that certain times of the year I can get the shade. Now, it's a little bit of a disadvantage. You can see that back here, these squash haven't even come up yet, and part of that is because they spend a little bit too much time in shade, and hopefully they're going to pop up. But the tomatoes that are over here, they're going to get a lot of afternoon shade. They got a little bit of shade in the summer. But my cucumbers over here, I planted them in this bed for the first time, these 3 beds right here, because I'm hoping that they're going to get just about the right amount of shade during the summer, just about the balance of sun and shade so that they're going to do really well, so I don't have to shade them. I don't really want to buy any more shade cloth. But if you have no shade in your yard, really consider buying some 60% shade cloth, and I'll show you when that's all set up, because I promise you it's going to extend your growing season. First of all, it keeps them from being absolutely blasted by the high sun rays, but also the temperature underneath can be as much as 10 degrees cooler in the shade. You know that from sitting in the shade of a tree than it is outside the shade, and that's super important for things like tomatoes and cucumbers, where once the temperature gets up around 90 degrees, the pollen just is no longer effective. It's not going to pollinate the ovules anymore. It's just so you won't have any fruit set at all on a lot of the plants during the heat of the summer. Now, things like okra and peppers, they're cool. They're going to keep cranking out. Okra in particular. Peppers set most of their fruit, when it's not quite 90, but they can still set fruit then. But some of these plants you need to be strategic if you have the ability to shade so that you can extend your growing season by another maybe 3 weeks, maybe into July even in Zone 8B. It just depends upon how much other shade you have as well.